Hi friends, welcome back to Literature Guide. I have been constantly working on this video, that's why I got late. Today's video is also highly informative. I collected a lot of information regarding the important magazines and periodicals in English literature, and I have tried to squeeze all that particular information in one video so that you can get maximum information in this video. I have covered all the famous magazines and periodicals in English literature which have often been asked in the NET and SET exams to the students of English literature, and I have tried to provide you all important information through this video. I am very much thankful again to the subscribers of this channel and non-subscribers also. They are also very much helpful, though they do not subscribe, but they support and watch my videos. I am also thankful to them, and you continue support and help this channel, and I will try to make much better videos in future also. Let's watch whether this video is really helpful for you or not.
Literary magazines and periodicals. Many magazines, periodicals and reviews play a dominant role in introducing and promoting the works of writers of the time. Literature is a reflection of society, and this reflection can be observed more clearly in the magazines and periodicals. The periodical essays were published in magazines and journals at regular intervals, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, etc. There was a tremendous growth in the publication of periodicals in the 18th century. Their main aim was to bring reform, to instruct and inform the mind and delight the heart of reading public. There have been many literary magazines and periodicals in English which were deeply associated with great writers in English literature. The first periodical appeared on the scene was the French journal's Des Sçavans in 1665. It was followed by the Giornata Letterati, an Italian periodical, in 1668. The British periodical Mercurius Librarius was published in 1668. John Dunton's The Athenian Mercury or Athenian Gazette appeared in 1691. The periodical is also known as the Question Project because the questions of the readers used to be answered in the periodical at regular intervals. The periodical dealt with many topics dealing with politics, science, literature, and religion. The Athenian Mercury can be deemed as a precursor of Notes and Queries, which appeared in 1849 in The Spectator. The Athenian Mercury was followed by the Gentleman's Journal in 1692. It was edited by Peter Anthony Motteux. The Gentleman's Journal covered news of prose and poetry. It also paved the way for the modern magazine. The Athenian Gazette and the Gentleman's Journal are the precursors of Daniel Defoe's weekly periodical The Review, which appeared in 1704. It mainly dealt with political affairs of the time. Daniel Defoe's The Review attacked follies and foibles of people in sarcastic language. The Review was originally called as a weekly review of the affairs of France, but it was afterwards titled as a review of the state of the British nation in 1707. The Review commented upon politics, trade, religion, economics and other social topics. It is interesting to note that the Review also had a section of stories called Advice from the Scandal Club. The Tatler was a periodical originally founded by Richard Steele and later on joined by Joseph Addison in 1709. It appeared 3 times a week until 1711, numbering 271 issues in all. The object of this paper was to expose the false arts of life, to pull off the disguise of cunning, vanity, and affectation, and to recommend a general simplicity in our dress, our discourse, and our behavior. The Tatler also included letters, stories, reviews of recent plays, and publications, and spoof advertisement along with the real ones. The Tatler had a didactic and moral tone, attacking the evils of dueling and gambling, and it also discussed the matters of good manners of the time. The Tatler was republished in book form and was popular for its light satiric tone. In this joint venture Joseph Addison also contributed suggestions, notes and a number of complete papers with equal zeal and force as Steele. Jonathan Swift's poems appeared in the Tatler. Alexander Pope borrowed some material on fashions for his famous Rape of the Lock from the Tatler. In 1709, Richard Steele's Tatler was followed by the Female Tatler, which was edited by Phoebe Crackenthorpe. John Henry Bolingbroke founded a periodical, The Examiner, in 1710. The periodical had a Tory outlook, and it attacked superstitions and the historical elements of Christianity. It is important to note that Alexander Pope's The Essay on Man was greatly influenced John Henry Bolingbroke. The Spectator succeeded the Tatler from 1 March, 1711 to 1712, which was produced jointly by Addison and Steele. After an interval for some time, it reappeared in 1714, it was revived by Joseph Addison and 80 numbers were added to it. This periodical appeared daily except Sundays. It became immensely popular with the middle class and professional readership. It was closely connected with London and its coffee houses. This periodical was mainly dealt with contemporary manners, morals and literature. In this periodical, Addison's 19 essays became famous, for they were literary papers on Milton's Paradise Lost, and his 11 essays dealt with pleasures of imagination. The primary motto of this periodical was to enliven morality with wit, and to temper wit with morality. The Spectator was written in satiric tone. The Tatler and the Spectator were the beginning of the modern essay. Their studies of human character, as exemplified in Sir Roger de Coverley, are the preparation for the modern novel. Another important periodical by Richard Steele, The Guardian, appeared in 1713. The major contribution came from Joseph Addison, George Berkeley, and Alexander Pope. It is important to note that The Guardian was formed in opposition to The Examiner. Nicholas Amherst started as periodical The Craftsman in 1727. It was a weekly periodical. John Henry Bolingbroke contributed to this periodical. John Martin and Richard Russell edited the satirical literary newspaper Grub Street Journal in 1730. The Gentleman's Magazine, a periodical, appeared in 1731. It was founded by Edward Cave, under the pen name Sylvanus Urban. The Gentleman's Magazine contained essays, news, anecdotes, criticism, and poetry. Dr. Samuel Johnson contributed to this journal. The Gentleman's Magazine was followed by a periodical, London Magazine, in 1732. It was started by Isaac Kimber. The London Magazine contained information about arts and literature. The London Magazine was formed in opposition to the Gentleman's Magazine. The Monthly Review, a literary periodical of Ralph Griffiths, appeared in 1749. The periodical had liberal outlook. Richard Brinsley Sheridan, Oliver Goldsmith, and many other renowned writers contributed to it. Dr. Samuel Johnson's Rambler began in 1750. It was a twice-weekly periodical and it published essays on different topics like crime, education, history, economics, etc. Fables, allegories, and criticism were also a part of the periodical. Some famous writers like Samuel Richardson, Hester Chapone, Elizabeth Carter and Catherine Talbot contributed to this periodical. Dr. Johnson's Rambler was followed by the Critical Review, which appeared in 1756. It was formed against a liberal literary periodical, the Monthly Review. Tobias Smollett edited the Critical Review for some time. Oliver Goldsmith, Dr. Samuel Johnson, David Hume wrote for the Critical Review. Robert Dodsley founded the Annual Register in collaboration with Edmund Burke in 1758. It was eulogized as the best and most comprehensive of all the periodical works. It was a yearly review of history, politics and literature of the past year. Another periodical, The Idler by Dr. Samuel Johnson, appeared in 1758. The Idler was written in vivid and lucid style containing 104 papers. Joshua Reynolds, Thomas Warton contributed to this periodical. Morning Chronicle, a Whig journal, began in 1769, and it was founded by William Woodfall. Many renowned literary figures like Charles Lamb, William Makepeace Thackeray, Charles Dickens, John Stuart Mill, and Thomas Moore contributed to this periodical. Joseph Johnson's The Analytical Review appeared in 1788. This literary periodical had radical outlook and it played vital role in scattering the fragrance of Romanticism. The works of William Wordsworth, Charles Lamb, and Robert Southey were published in the Analytical Review. A literary periodical, The Watchman, appeared in 1796. It was founded by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. The political atmosphere of Coleridge's time peeps through this periodical. The Monthly Magazine appeared in 1796. It was formed by Richard Phillips, a staunch supporter of Thomas Paine. The magazine covered a wide range of topics like literature, philosophy, politics, science, etc. John Aiken edited the magazine and many renowned writers of the time contributed to the monthly magazine. The Anti-Jacobin or Weekly Examiner was founded in 1797 by George Canning and his friends George Ellis and John Frere. It was formed against the monthly magazine. The primary goal of the journal was to oppose the radical views of the monthly magazine. It also opposed Samuel Taylor Coleridge's journal The Watchman. The Anti-Jacobin was edited by William Gifford, and it had a Tory outlook. The journal had satire and parody as its lethal weapons. It ridiculed Robert Southey, Erasmus, and Charles Darwin. During the 19th century, there was an emergence of the modern reviews and magazines. It is interesting to note that all forms of literature like poetry, prose, and criticism flourished during this age. But there was a clash between two ideologies. Like the 18th century literature, the literature of the 19th century was also greatly influenced by magazines and reviews. In the 19th century, the magazines and reviews imparted great opportunity to the writers. Secondly, it opened up for them a new door for criticism, especially for the criticism of contemporary literature. There was some room for the discussion of the respective principles and objectives of the old classical and the romantic school. As a result, the critics were also split into two groups, the conservatives and the radical. The Edinburgh Review was the mouthpiece of the Whig Party and it was formed by Sidney Smith and Francis Jeffrey in 1802. Francis Jeffrey stated the Review, in short, has but two legs to stand upon. Literature, no doubt, is one of them, and its right leg is politics. Thomas Carlyle called it as a kind of Delphic oracle. Francis Jeffrey, the editor of the Edinburgh Review, employed the term Lake School of Poets contemptuously in one of his articles. He criticized the Romantic writers, especially William Wordsworth. Jeffrey's poetic taste was conservative or classical. He did not like the radical thoughts of the Romantics. He was highly sarcastic and unkind to the Romantic poets, and so he attacked the Romantic poets in his articles. Francis Jeffrey attacked William Wordsworth's famous work The Excursion, which was to become the second book of the great work The Recluse. Along with Wordsworth, he also directed his sharp and bitter criticism at Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Robert Southey. Another periodical called Friend was founded by Samuel Taylor Coleridge in collaboration with Sarah Hutchinson in 1809. A few sections of William Wordsworth's The Prelude were published in Friend. The periodical covered varied topics like literature, morals, politics, and religion. In 1809, the Quarterly Review was formed in opposition to the Edinburgh Review. It was a Tory mouthpiece which denounced the new poetry. The Quarterly Review was founded by John Murray and it was edited by William Gifford. John Keats' famous poem Endymion was brutally criticised by Gifford. Major contribution to the Quarterly Review came from George Canning, John Frere, Robert Southey, and Sir Walter Scott. Keats' Endymion was also harshly criticised in the Quarterly Review by John Crocker in 1818. It is still said that Crocker's review hastened the death of the great poet. But Crocker's remarks on Keats' Endymion are not as poisonous as Lockhart's comments in the Blackwoods magazine. Another literary quarterly, The Reflector, began in 1810, it was started by Leigh Hunt. It is important to note that Charles Lamb's essays on the plays of William Shakespeare and on William Hogarth appeared in The Reflector. New Monthly Magazine, a periodical, was formed by Henry Colburn and F. Scoberry in 1814. It was formed to oppose the Monthly Magazine. The critical essays of Thomas Dalford on William Wordsworth, Charles Lamb, and John Keats were the main attraction of the periodical. It is to be noted that Charles Dickens dedicated his Pickwick Papers to Thomas Dalford. In 1815, a quarterly periodical, North American Review, was started. Charles Norton, James Russell Lowell and Henry Adams were its editors. The quarterly periodical afterwards became a monthly periodical. Washington Irving, Mark Twain, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry James contributed to this periodical. Blackwood's Magazine, or the Maga of William Blackwood with a Tory outlook, appeared in 1817, it was a monthly periodical. It was started in opposition to the Edinburgh Review. It is also known as Edinburgh Monthly Magazine, and then it was called as Blackwood's Edinburgh Review. The Blackwood magazine attacked the second-generation Romantic poets as, the Cockney writers are by far the vilest vermin that ever dared to creep upon the hem of the majestic garment of the English muse. John Lockhart attacked the Cockney school of poetry in the magazine, particularly Leigh Hunt was targeted. Leigh Hunt published John Keats' work in the radical journal The Examiner and he continued to support Keats. John Keats and William Hazlitt were also mocked at by the Blackwood's magazine. Henry Colburn started a literary gazette in collaboration with William Jerdan in 1817. William Jerdan served as an editor of the Literary Gazette. It covered a wide range of topics on fine arts, sciences, and books. The Literary Gazette also comprised book reviews. Letitia Landon, George Crabbe, Mary Mitford and Barry Cornwall wrote for it. Leigh Hunt founded a periodical, The Indicator, which appeared in 1819. He also handled a job of an editor of the periodical. The Indicator dealt with the topics related to literature and it did not serve any political party. The works of the budding writers like John Keats were published in the periodical. The London Magazine was founded in 1820 and it was edited by John Scott. The works of William Wordsworth, Charles Lamb, Thomas Carlyle and Thomas de Quincey were included in the London Magazine. Some works of John Keats, Leigh Hunt and William Hazlitt gained some room in it. The London Magazine put stress on the original writing. As a review of past literature, the Retrospective Review was started in 1820 by Henry Southern and he also worked as an editor of the review. The main goal of the Retrospective Review was to take a view of development and growth of English literature and arouse interest in the old literature. It reviewed the works of Francis Bacon, Henry Vaughan, Ben Jonson, George Herbert, and Sir Thomas Browne. It also made comparison between the quality of the old literature and the modern literature. The Westminster Review, a philosophical journal, was formed by James Mill in 1824. It attacked the Quarterly Review and the Edinburgh Review for their narrow outlook. The works of Walter Pater, Herbert Spencer, J. A. Froude, and George Eliot appeared in the Westminster Review. It became a monthly in 1887. In 1828, Athenaeum, a literary review, was founded by James Buckingham in collaboration with John Hamilton Reynolds, Thomas Hood, and Alan Cunningham. It criticized the narrowness of the quarterly review. The major contribution came from the renowned writers of the time. William Maginn and Hugh Fraser founded a literary and general journal, Fraser's Magazine, in 1830. It is important to note that the Fraser's Magazine was not owned by any publisher of books. Most of the great writers of the time contributed to it. Charles Lamb, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Robert Southey, Thomas Love Peacock, John Ruskin, and Harrison Ainsworth contributed to the Fraser's Magazine. A literary monthly, Englishman's Magazine, appeared in 1831. It was edited by Edward Moxon. The Englishman's Magazine covered poetry, criticism, drama, essays including music and art. It is important to note that the Englishman's Magazine supported the Cockney School of Poets. Chambers' Journal or Chambers' Edinburgh Journal appeared in 1832. It was founded by Robert Chambers. It included literature, science, and arts. Charles Knight founded Penny Magazine in 1832 for the poor and needy. He wanted to make information and knowledge available to them at low price. In 1833, the Knickerbocker Magazine appeared in New York. It was edited by Charles Hoffman. It published works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, James Fenimore Cooper, and Washington Irving. Bentley's Miscellany, a periodical, was formed in 1837 by Richard Bentley. Charles Dickens was the first editor of the periodical. It covered fiction, poetry, essays, and stories. The great writers like William Maginn, William Makepeace Thackeray, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, contributed to Bentley's Miscellany. Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist appeared in it. A quarterly periodical, The Dial of the American Transcendental Movement, appeared in 1840. It was edited by Margaret Fuller. Many great writers like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry Thoreau, and Nathaniel Hawthorne contributed to it. A weekly periodical, Master Humphrey's Clock, was formed by Charles Dickens in 1840. The Irish weekly periodical, The Nation, began in 1842. It was formed by Thomas Davis, Charles Garvin Duffy, and John Blake Dillon. It published poetry, reviews and articles. Notes and Queries followed the footsteps of the Athenian Mercury. It was a periodical formed by William Toms. It began in 1849 and subtitled as a medium of intercommunication for literary men, artists, antiquaries, genealogists, etc. It is a scholarly literary journal at present. Its main motto was "When found, made a note of." A periodical called Germ appeared in 1850. It was a mouthpiece of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. It was edited by William Michael Rossetti. Harper's Monthly Magazine appeared in New York in 1850. It was formed by Harper and Brothers. It published works of Charles Dickens, Edward Bulwer Lytton and William Makepeace Thackeray in serialized form. Herman Melville, Sarah Orne Jewett and William Dean Howells contributed it. Another periodical by Charles Dickens, Household Words, came into being in 1850. Charles Dickens edited the periodical. Elizabeth Gaskell, Wilkie Collins, George Meredith contributed to the Household Words. George Henry Lewis and Thornton Lee Hunt formed a weekly periodical, Leader, in 1850. Herbert Spencer, Alexander Kinglake and George Henry Lewis contributed it. The Saturday Review, a weekly review, was founded by A.J.B. Beresford Hope in 1855. It published works of Thomas Hardy, H. G. Wells, Max Beerbohm. The Oxford and Cambridge Magazine appeared in 1858. It published poems, fairy tales, essays, and reviews. William Morris, Dante Gabriel Rossetti and Edward Burne-Jones contributed to it. Atlantic Monthly Magazine was formed in 1857. It was edited by James Russell Lowell. The works of Henry James, Mark Twain and Charles Chestnut published in it. An illustrated political and literary journal, Harper's Weekly magazine, formed in 1857. The works of Charles Dickens, Elizabeth Gaskell, Arthur Conan Doyle and Rudyard Kipling published in it. It was famous for its illustrations and woodcuts. A periodical, Macmillan's Magazine, was formed and edited by David Masson. It is important to note that it was one of the first magazines to use signed articles only. Alfred Lord Tennyson, Thomas Hardy, Margaret Oliphant, and Henry James contributed to the periodical. Cornhill magazine began in 1860. It was a literary periodical which was edited by William Makepeace Thackeray. It published novels in serialized form. The fiction of Elizabeth Gaskell, Anthony Trollope, and Thomas Hardy appeared in it. It published poetry of Alfred Lord Tennyson and A.C. Swinburne. Charles Appleton launched a periodical, Academy, in 1869. It was a platform for the scholars for cultural and intellectual discussion. Charles Appleton was the editor of the periodical. Matthew Arnold, T. H. Huxley, and Mark Patterson contributed to the periodical. A literary monthly periodical, the Fortnightly Review, was established in 1865. It published novels of Anthony Trollope and Walter Bagehot in serialized form. It was edited by G. H. Lewis and it had high literary value. Ellen Wood launched a magazine, Argosy, in 1865. It published essays and poems. Ellen Wood edited the magazine. An illustrated monthly, Belgravia, was edited by Mary Elizabeth Braddon in 1866. Wilkie Collins, Thomas Hardy and Bret Harte contributed it. In 1866, the Contemporary Review was established by Sir Percy Bunting. It comprised religious, political and literary subjects. In 1876, Henry Fielding edited a journal, The Champion. It contained discourse in essays, sermons, mock trials, and letters on political and literary issues of the time. A monthly review, 19th Century, was launched in 1877 by James Knowles. Many great writers of the time contributed to it. The name of the review changed at the turn of the century and it became 19th Century and after. James Knowles edited the review. In 1880, a weekly magazine, The Bulletin, was started in Sydney, Australia. It was edited by Alfred Stevens. The magazine played significant role for the writers of New Zealand and Australia. A literary and artistic periodical, The Dial, was formed in 1889 and it was edited by Charles Ricketts and Charles Shannon. Granta, an old name of Rivercam, was adopted for the Cambridge undergraduate periodical which was formed in 1889. Rudolph Chambers was its editor. It published poetry and fiction. A bibliographical journal, The Library, was started in 1889. A literary journal, Yellow Book, was published in 1894 by John Lane. It was edited by Henry Harland, with Aubrey Beardsley. Savoy, Art and Literature magazine appeared in 1896 and it was edited by Arthur Symonds. A periodical, English Review, was launched in 1908 which was edited by Ford Madox Ford. Rhythm, a periodical, was formed in 1911 and edited by J. M. Murray. Margaret Anderson launched an American monthly magazine, Little Review, in 1914 in Chicago. In 1914, Wyndham Lewis edited the literary periodical Blast. It was subtitled as Review of the Great English Vortex. Egoist or New Free Woman, an individualist review, was started by Harriet Shaw Weaver and Dora Marsden in 1914. It was a feminist paper and published poetry and art. It is important to note that the review was a mouthpiece of Imagist poetry. A monthly literary periodical, London Mercury, was formed by J.C. Squire in 1919. He edited the London Mercury. It was a modernist periodical. Time and Tide, an independent weekly review, was launched in 1920 by Viscount Ronner Margaret Haig Thomas. She was supported by Rebecca West and Cicely Hamilton. The periodical was edited by Helen Archdale. It was a feminist periodical. Criterion, a literary periodical, was formed in 1922 and it was edited by Thomas Stearns Eliot. It contained essays, poetry, short stories and reviews. Thomas Stearns Eliot's The Waste Land appeared in it. A magazine in science fiction and supernatural called Weird Tales appeared in 1923 under the editorship of John Middleton Murray. An American weekly magazine, New Yorker, was established in 1925 by Harold Ross. Many artists, reporters, and cartoonists were associated with it. A literary monthly literary periodical Calendar of Modern Letters appeared in 1925. It was edited by Edgell Rickword, Douglas Garman, and Bertram Higgins. Amazing Stories has been deemed as the first science fiction magazine. It was launched by Hugo Gerns back in 1926. Jules Verne, H. G. Wells and Ursula K. Le Guin were associated with it. Transition, an international quarterly for creative experiment, a periodical, was founded in 1927 in Paris by Eugene and Maria Jolas. The BBC weekly magazine Listener appeared in 1929. It published reviews, poetry, and fiction. It was edited by J.R. Ackerley. The magazine Astounding Science Fiction or Analog appeared in 1930. It primarily published science fiction. An American literary and political periodical, Partisan Review, was launched in 1934. Saul Bellow, Thomas Stearns Eliot, and George Orwell contributed to it. New Worlds was British science fiction magazine launched in 1936. A literary magazine, Horizon, was founded in 1939 by Cyril Connolly, Stephen Spender, and Peter Watson. A literary quarterly, Stand, was launched in 1952 by John Silkin. It published poetry, criticism, and fiction. A political, cultural, and literary review, Encounter, was established in 1953. A New York journal, The Evergreen Review, was started in 1957, which was associated with the Beat Generation and avant-garde writing. A periodical, Agenda, was founded in 1959 and it was edited by William Cookson. A literary quarterly, Ambit, was established in 1959 by Martin Bax. A literary review, Critical Quarterly, was formed in 1959 and it was edited by C.B. Cox and A.E. Dyson. It published literary theory, criticism, and creative writing. A quarterly poetry magazine, Review, was founded in 1962. It was edited by Ian Hamilton. A weekly periodical, New Society, was formed in 1962 and edited by Timothy Raison. It published social sciences, reportage, and the arts. A twice-yearly poetry magazine, Poetry Nation, was launched in 1973. It was edited by C.B. Cox and Michael Schmidt. A literary and cultural review, London Review of Books, was formed in 1979 and edited by Carl Miller. It has published critical essays and articles. The British science fiction magazine, Interzone, was launched in 1982. It has been edited by David Pringle. Poetry London, a bi-monthly magazine, launched in 1988. Thus, there are many literary magazines and periodicals in English. Many great writers have contributed to the periodicals and magazines.
If you have really liked this video, please like and subscribe this channel. I will meet you again in a new video with an interesting topic again in a few days.
Please subscribe Literature